Hello, happy Thursday to everybody out there. Welcome to Randall's weather page. Today we got a lot to get into. I got a lot to show you, but I want to make sure to get you the most detailed look at the tropics that is out there. I'll make sure to hit that with you. Hey, make sure to go down, hit that subscribe button, make sure to ring that bell, make sure you're the first to get notified. Share it with your family, your friends, your coworkers. Make sure they're in the know as much as you're in the know. And once again, they can and you can watch the most detailed explanation of what's going on in the tropics. Of course, we're through Rene. Next up, Sally, Teddy, Vicky, Wilfred, and then we get into the Greek alphabet. Let's take a look. This is the mid-layer water vapor loop. Paulette, Rene, what probably will be Sally right here. Then we got a couple interesting factors. One in the Gulf, moving over another one, and that will be moving into the Gulf. So a couple of things that we're going to be looking at today. Let's look at the water vapor loop. You know, I love the water vapor loop. There's Paulette. You can see a nice spin with Paulette. There is Rene, nice spin with Rene. This will probably be Sally coming off right here. Can't see it yet, not much of a twist, but you have one right there, one back here. And let's look and see the 5-day graphical outlook. Notice you got some new ones that have popped up. This is Invest 94L, almost done with 94L, not much to look at whatsoever. But here's one in the Gulf that will be moving over towards the western Gulf. I give that one a 30% chance. This one also a 30% chance. Coming over from just east of the Bahamas, going into the Gulf. Paulette, Rene, new and new. All right, well, this will probably be Sally right here. And then possibly Teddy right here. So active, you know, this is the peak for hurricane season. Very active. Obviously, looks like a kid took some crayons and drew on the map here. So got plenty to get into. Let's start off with Paulette. As of this morning, 60 mile per hour sustained winds moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour. Keeps it as a tropical storm until it gets next to Bermuda, which that would be on Monday, then turns it into a hurricane. That's what the National Hurricane Center has for Paulette. This is one of my new favorite slides I get to show you. It's just a multi-model diagnostic comparison for Paulette. It shows you this is max winds in knots. Notice keeps it about level. Then about September 13th on, it starts moving it up in intensity. Your deep layer shear, the reason why it's not intensifying and why they keep it as a tropical storm until then is notice your shear, your deep layer shear is pretty high. You're talking about 30 up to 40 knots of shear. And that will keep a tropical storm from turning into a hurricane. But notice the effective shear goes down. And that's why it will turn into a hurricane, or is forecasted to turn into a hurricane, because the shear goes down. Sea surface temperatures, it stays in very warm sea surface temperatures. And then your mid-level relative humidity, it's about the same, goes down just a little bit. Best tracks right now, GFS, your HMON, which is a hurricane model, your CTCX, your WRF, and your official. I'll keep it on that west-northwest trend. All right, and that is, I believe that's through 120 hours there. Okay. I love this slide because not only does it show you wind and intensity, it also shows you the shear. It shows you the sea surface temperatures and the mid-level relative humidity plus the tracks, all kind of in one. Let's look at the ensemble models. Your ensemble models are pretty tight. getting up near Bermuda, then hooking it out to the right, being kicked out by a front. You have a couple of members that are still a little further west, but the majority of your ensemble members are they're in correlation with each other. Here is your global plus your hurricane models altogether. Notice about 120, about hour 120 is when you start seeing the turn to north to northeast. All right, let's take a look at your GFS patterns. Pretty tight, only one outlier. I always think back to the movie Super Troopers when they're taking target practice, and there's always that one that the one that he didn't hit the target. You know, don't worry about that one. So don't worry about this one. Everything else is completely that's pretty tight right there. And then about 120 hour makes that northern turn right around Bermuda, and then to the northeast. Once again, my motto is if your major models are still showing something in the Atlantic coming on the west of Bermuda, you still have to pay attention. But this grouping from the GFS is pretty tight. Let's go look at the new GFS, the GFS Para. Now it has a little more members out here to the west, so that's the whole reason why inside Bermuda, the west of Bermuda, always pay attention. You always pay attention. But notice most of the most of the ensembles in the GFS do turn it into a hurricane after hour 96, and then all of them turn to the north and then the northeast. Just have a little more. You have some that have a little further west track. You know, we still have to pay attention. That's the reason why we still have to pay attention to Paulette. Intensity, notice to about hour number 96, still tropical storm. Then that shear lets up, and then we move into category 1, with 2 of them moving it up into a category 2, almost a category 3. But the majority sitting at a mid to upper level category 1 by hour 144 on. All right. Let's go take a look at Rene. So Rene's 40 miles per hour, west-northwest at 10 miles per hour. National Hurricane Center briefly makes it a hurricane around Saturday afternoon, and then turns back into a tropical storm. Let's look at the multimodal diagnostic comparison. Notice pretty much the same until September the 10th. September the 11th, you start getting a little bit of intensification, and then it kind of levels off. The reason why is it moves into a very low shear atmosphere. Just for, from the 11th through the 12th, low shear atmosphere, and then the shear picks right back up and then intensifies. And that's why it goes from a hurricane back down to a tropical storm. Still warm seas, and then your mid-level relative humidity goes down. Notice the shear goes up, the mid-level relative humidity goes down. Track west-northwest, with your GFS turning it more north early, and your H-Wharf and your H-Mon still keeping it on a west northwest track. Let's go look at the ensemble models. Pay attention to this because you still got a good number of ensemble models that have this going further west, and you still have it's a little more than half have the curve up, moving from west northwest to more north, but you still have a good number of outliers that still take this further west. So even with Rene, I'm still keeping a close eye, just because of all these ensemble members that are further west than the consensus track. Here's your global plus hurricane models. Notice most of them are west-northwest with a general turn starting at 72 hours to more of a northwest. and your official track takes it that way, kind of right in the middle. But once again, your hurricane models still keep this on a further west track, so just kind of have to watch it a little bit. If this goes further west, we definitely have to keep our eye on it. Your GFS, notice on your GFS, still westward tracks with your main GFS track moving to the north, moving to the west, and then about hour 72 starts turning northwest to north. Okay. Here's your GFS para. Once again, new GFS. Look at all these members west. With the consensus track moving it northwest, then almost due west, then curving it back over. So interesting track by the new GFS compared to the old GFS. And a little bit different there. Intensity keeps it about the same. Official track moves it up to a category 1, but notice most keep it as a tropical storm. I think the reason why the National Hurricane Center is moving it up to a category 1 is because that hurricane model. And the hurricane models have been performing well this year. So I think that's the main reason they move it up into category 1 and for that brief amount of time, plus the shear level. Okay, ensemble-based probability of tropical cyclone genesis using global models as forecast for now through 120 hours. You want to know why the National Hurricane Center was watching the Gulf of Mexico? All right here. Notice there's a higher chance down here in the Bay of Campeche. But anytime you see a whole bunch of models and they're trying to hint at something in the Gulf, it's when you have to start watching out. So that's why National Hurricane Center is watching for those two disturbances, one that's already in the Gulf, one that is out here moving into the Gulf, and seeing if something develops. Notice the hotbed is down here off of Africa, and that would be for Sally and then possibly Teddy coming off. This is, I haven't shown you this yet. This is shear as of right now. Okay. So Paulette, Rene, what's coming off? Notice in the main development region, not a lot of shear. There's pockets of shear, of higher shear, but not a lot of shear, mainly coming off the African coast here and where there's a high pressure up here. But in your main development region, not much, okay? Not much. Let's go to effective shear as of, this would be of Saturday. Notice a little more shear inside of Paulette. Notice this is where Rene gets her chance to explode. Notice the Gulf, not much shear, just only in the far western regions. And that's why the National Hurricane Center is paying attention to the Gulf and the disturbances that are moving into the Gulf. And then this is for Sunday. Notice here's your shear. There's Rene, there's Paulette, Rene. Notice the Gulf effectively free from shear. That's why the National Hurricane Center is really watching those two disturbances to see what happens. Okay, main development region, pretty much not a lot of shear, just slight little pockets. And for it to be a MJO negative phase where there's more sinking air, this is pretty amazing. Okay. And then for the next 24 hours, cyclone genesis possibility. Notice this would be for Sally. This is the area that they were watching going into the Gulf of Mexico, and then this is the area that they were watching that disturbance is already in the Gulf of Mexico. So just keeping an eye out right here. Paulette, Rene. Notice nothing really on the East Coast. And then where Sally and possibly Teddy could be coming out. And this is 24 to 48 hours. Notice Gulf, Sally, possibly Teddy, Rene, Paulette. Effectively nothing on the East Coast as far as tropical cyclone formation. So that little 94L, just not seeing much out of it whatsoever. This is another new one that I want to show you. This is potential maximum central pressure. So if something got into the Gulf and really got going, this all has to do with heat and with shear. If something got going in the Gulf right now, the potential minimum pressure would be, the Gulf is ripe, is what I'm trying to show you here. The Gulf is ripe, and that's why the National Hurricane Center is really watching it. This is the minimum pressure that a storm could get if they got over the waters and there was nothing to inhibit it. So maximum in the eastern, southern, and eastern Gulf, and pretty close to maximum in the rest of the Gulf. Notice your main development region. Once you get off of Africa, the lower the latitude, the higher it is. So the main areas that we watch out for, a lot of potential right there. And then maximum potential winds if a system really got going. Notice there's a lot of blues in the Gulf and a lot of blues in the main development region, which just means that if something gets going, it's not really inhibited, that we're in the category 5 on if something really got going. Let's look at Africa. I always talk about the wave train. Possibly Sally, Teddy, Vicky. It just keeps going. The waves just keep rolling, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 waves that all have the potential. Yes, we are going to hit the Greek alphabet this year. All right, let's take a look at the GFS and what the GFS has to say about our particular storms that are going on. Notice, I'm going to let this run through a couple of times. Yeah, people in Florida, you noticing that? That would be Sally, okay? That's Paulette. Let's look at Paulette. Goes inside of Bermuda, then it gets kicked out. Notice Rene. Once I let this run through one more time. I know, Florida, you're looking at this. Should be looking at this also. Rene moves forward, gets caught up in the same as Paulette, and then moves out to sea. This would be Sally, Teddy, possibly, Vicky. I mean, the tropics are active. This is that little disturbance moving into the Gulf. Notice it just kind of keeps it going, doesn't really develop it much. So once again, this is the GFS model. And the GFS is taking Sally into the Caribbean up through Cuba, and then coming out of Cuba, re-strengthening, and then basically riding up Florida. Now, I'm going to say this is only one model. This is not an official track. This is just, you need to pay attention, okay? Just when we get out past 300 hours, we're just looking at general positioning of possible storms, okay? This would cause havoc for the Dominican Republic and Haiti if this was to happen. All right, but now notice not only you have one storm, Sally, but you'd also have Teddy that would come in behind it, and then so you could have Sally up towards Florida, and then Teddy would be following in behind, and this could be going towards the East Coast. So Florida, East Coast, keep your wits about you. All right, let's go to the European model. European model has Sally into the Caribbean, going up right past Haiti into Cuba, coming out of Cuba, and taking aim towards Florida. So the Caribbean and Florida need to pay attention. And then look what behind Sally. That would be Teddy or Vicky. And the wave train keeps coming. Notice Paulette has it inside Bermuda, then coming out. Rene pretty much dissipating. and then moving out. So the European, pretty much the same on Paulette as the GFS. And then you're kind of seeing a consensus of, in the later stages, of something in the Caribbean and then turning north with something behind it. Okay, so it would be Sally, possibly Teddy or Vicky. So you have two major models showing kind of the same result, but further out. Let's go into the Jim, which is the Canadian. Moves Paulette east of Bermuda. Nothing really going on for Rene. And then Sally, Teddy. But we'll look again. Look what the Jim does. Same as the European, same as the GFS. Moves it into the Caribbean. Once it gets into the Caribbean, it starts taking a northerly turn. So we're starting to see, major models seeing something getting into the Caribbean and then making a northerly turn at some point, with another coming right behind. So consensus among the models that something gets into the Caribbean, something comes in behind that. All right, let's go look at the icon. I look at the icon because it's pretty good about positioning. It only goes out to 120 hours, but notice Sally. But it moves Sally north. And then let's look at Paulette. Looks like it's taking Paulette way east of Bermuda. So a little bit different from your European and your GFS. Here's your little disturbance in the Gulf. Pops it up, keeps moving it west, and goes into South Texas. All right. So icon seeing things a little bit differently. That's a big kick north for Rene. Let's go look at the new GFS, the GFS parallel. Now it moves Paulette pretty much right over Bermuda and then out. Rene up. Look what it does with Sally. Sally goes way north, but it's seeing the same thing. Something getting into the Gulf. Excuse me about that. Something getting into the Caribbean. And going to make a north turn. So, your GFS parallel seeing it. Let's go into the Japanese model. You have Paulette, Rene, and then Sally coming off. Now, the Japanese model only goes to 72 hours, but it's pretty good about positioning. All right. Let's go to the GFS. This is the ensemble members of the GFS. Okay, this is Paulette, Rene. Notice you have one, that's that one little member. I was like, don't pay attention to that one. But notice, here's the other one that they're seeing. East Coast, Florida. The ensemble members are kind of making you pay attention there, isn't it? So here's Sally coming off. Sally, Teddy. And just notice what it does, that northern turn. Now these are all the ensembles for it. You have a couple that go into the Gulf. You notice the Florida and the East Coast is covered. So the ensembles are seeing something in the Caribbean and then moving north. Okay? And then let's go to the European. It's Paulette, Rene, Sally, Teddy. Now it only goes out to 144, but still notice into the Caribbean. Here's your disturbance that moves into the Gulf. Really not much happening with it. Maybe depression in there. But notice the general trend. A lot of the models are trying to show something getting into the Caribbean. Trying to get into the Caribbean. So that is my update. Thank you very much. I'll continue to watch this. Once again, make sure to share this with your family, your friends, your coworkers. So make sure to keep everybody informed on what's going on. in the tropics, because it can definitely change very quickly. I appreciate you subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe so that way you can be notified first of what's going on. Thank y'all very much, and I will see you later.